Zero Spoilers. I am Adam. I'm back to about 100% today, which is good. I'd say 98%. I'm not going to go into detail about what may or may not be working properly, but 98%. That seems like a nice number to put it at. Still a little tired, and that is partially because last night I watched the movie we're going to discuss today, and we're going to talk about that. So, still not feeling 100% in the chest area. Anyway, we're talking about Sometimes I Think About Dying, the movie out of Sundance, starring Daisy Ridley in the lead, which made its debut Tuesday, I think. It may have debuted earlier in a physical screening, but digitally it debuted Tuesday. So basically what this movie is you have this girl, played by Daisy Ridley, named Fran, who has very bad social anxiety. She works an office job. She likes the office job, but she doesn't like all of the social aspects of the office job. She just likes to show up, do her thing, and go home. That's what she's there to do. And she does that well. She does a very good job with that. And it's kind of like she just feels awkward in all the situations. And I think that here's the thing. I think the biggest revelation for me watching this movie, having seen... And look, I really hate... Because the thing is, too, I think I've railed about this before. I can't stand when people are on a press tour for a new movie, and all anyone wants to talk about is the last franchise they were in. Like Margot Robbie being on a press tour, and everyone's like, ooh, are you going to come back as Harley Quinn? Or Daisy Ridley here on this press tour. And everyone's asking, like, ooh, are you going to come back and play Ray again? It's that kind of thing. Where it's like, ask them about the movie they're in now. Don't ask them about Star Wars. Don't ask them about DC movies. Don't ask them about Marvel movies. Ask them about the movie that you're sitting in now. But I digress. The point of all that is, seeing her in Star Wars, I thought she was fine in those movies. I didn't think there was anything special about what she was doing. She's good, and I liked Rey. I just, I didn't think that, she was... nothing about her performance screamed incredibly talented actress in the way that this movie, when you see it, she has range, and she plays the socially awkward person very well. Everything about her mannerisms, her speech patterns, everything about it is so well done that it's kind of like Brendan Fraser in The Whale, in so much as this movie is carried on her performance. And I think that she does a great job in this role to be able to carry this movie. So, she has all these awkward interactions with people, and she goes home and she lives by herself and doesn't do much, and she just kind of exists and moves along, and throughout the day, she fantasizes about her own death. Not in a I'm gonna kill myself kind of way, where she's sitting there and she's like, oh, it would be like, this is how I'm gonna kill myself. It's not like A Man Called Otto, A Man Called Otto isn't even fantasizing. He's actively planning and trying to carry out his own suicide. It's, she is carrying out, she's just kind of sitting there and fantasizing about what it would feel like to die in that way, or die being hung from the crane, or die, in a car crash, and things like that. And she's kind of passively moving along, fantasizing about what that would be like. And it's an interesting kind of subject matter, especially when you couple the fact that she's in this job that she claims to like, but, you're looking at it, and you're looking at the kind of inanity that's going on in this office all the time, and I think the writer of this movie has definitely worked an office job before, because every interaction in the office is just nailed perfectly, and it's all just kind of very, all of it just kind of like, oh, this is exactly what it sounds like to be in an office. Everything here is kind of perfectly perfectly in tune for what it would be like if you were wandering around an office and that was your job all day. So it's an interesting kind of it's an interesting thing to see executed, and I think that's another thing that works very well for this movie, and that's a very bad place to pull someone over, blocking the exit of a fucking firehouse. Jesus Christ. So, and I think that's another thing that's, pretty well executed too, is the way that all kind of plays out. And so, all of that's going on, and then this new guy joins, because someone retires and this new guy joins. And, he is, he intrigues Fran. So, they start becoming friends, and they start going out and doing things, and Fran starts to open up and become a little more, social and all of that. And all of that kind of works. The actor who's in the other role, I don't remember his name, but he does a pretty good job too. He plays he's a divorcee, or a twice divorced gentleman. He does all of these kind of, he's just trying to get Fran to come out of her, bubble, a little bit, and it works for her a little bit. The only thing about the movie that I didn't particularly care for is I felt the conflict at the end of the movie was a little rushed, and to the point where I watched the movie, and as I'm going through it, I'm like, because I was like, how much longer is this? Because first of all, when you watch things, I think that Sundance, great festival, they do a lot of great work, and they do a lot of work for indies that's really admirable and all of that. They have an app, which is a lot more than can be said about a lot of other festivals that do digital screenings. That said, the video player in the app, motherfucker, you're gonna let me in, or you're gonna just exactly. A lot more than can be said about a lot of these other apps. It's got a video player built in. You don't have to watch it on your web browser. You don't have to watch it. They have it. It all works. The problem is you got to watch 7 little videos before it starts about the history of Sundance. Which, okay, if you go to a film festival, like when I went to Stony Brook, or when I went to Long Island, or when I went to Hamptons, or even New York City Indie, they always have these where it's here are our sponsors for the festival, here are some things for the festival, here are other things in the area for the festival, and partners and stuff like that. Which, alright, I get all that. But, do it as one long video, not 7 little ones that close out and restart every time you do it. Because that's part of that is, something you should probably not be doing. Because every time it went to the next one in a little slideshow, it ended up closing out and restarting, and I was like, why the fuck did I need to do this 7 times to get this movie to load? And then it's by the 3rd time, I'm like, is this going to keep me from watching the actual movie that I keep closing out and restarting it to get this thing to work? But no, let me watch the movie. So, very, very interesting and well done. I don't know how I got into that diatribe about the Sundance app. Oh, right, the runtime. I'm watching the movie and I'm like, it only said an hour and a half, which I'm fine with. I love a good hour and a half movie, so you can keep it tight within that, and you can make it not feel like an hour and a half. And I'm like, how much longer could this possibly be? Because I feel like I'm almost at the end, and we haven't had any real conflict. And the thing is, too, is at that point I'm like, because in my head I'm like, it's gotta be close to an hour and a half, but at the same time we haven't had the midpoint explosion or anything like that, which I'm not saying you need to have. But if you're going to do a rom-com, you'd think you would have some kind of conflict between the main characters for them to come back together. I'm like, there's only 20 minutes left. Jesus Christ, that's not a lot of time. So, eventually they do have it, but I feel like it blows up too quickly and then is resolved equally quickly. And I'm like, I don't think that's in the best service of the story for it to come together this way. I don't think it necessarily benefits, the character arcs to have everything kind of happen that way. At the same time, you do need to spend a lot of time building up Fran as an entity. And I understand that, because if you don't build up Fran, that there's some of the emotional resonance is lost. But this is a movie that happily could have done with an extra 30 minutes. But at the same time, it's they work together 6 feet apart. So I don't know how much more you could have done to be here's additional stuff to talk about. Like, it's a very fine line, because it's like, you need to resolve that. Like, the fight happens Friday night, Monday morning they're back at work. You can't have this lingering that whole time. And it's an interesting question. I just feel like, for who Fran is portrayed as, and for what Fran says to him, for it to have resolved as quickly as it did. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, because the movie is premiering at a film festival, and it'll probably get a wider release. I think Daisy Ridley has name recognition enough to warrant at least a limited theatrical run, larger than Fast Color, obviously. But I think that we're going to end up... I think that the issue is, like, what she says to him is so mean and so just wow that it's like, well, why does this result, like, the resolution doesn't feel compensatory to what happened, is what I'm trying to say. Compensatory is definitely the wrong word. But that's the biggest issue I have, is that the resolution doesn't quite feel earned in the context of the movie. Her character arc does, but I feel like the ending only happens because we're at the end of the movie and it has to happen. And there's the expectation that by the time we reach the end of the movie, we will have a resolution with these two characters, and they will be back together happily ever after. Without that, Jesus fucking Christ, who the fuck is going below 50 on the expressway? This motherfucker. But without that, the movie kind of just would fall a little flat and feel a little weird, and I think that's part of the problem. Where this doesn't quite feel just quite right. But if that's the only issue, then it's not the end of the world. It's a pretty good movie, and it is very entertaining, and I think that she does a great job in the role. I'm a sucker for a good movie about someone in their 20-somethings who is working a dead-end job. You know how that those movies are always a good use of my time. I'm always entertained by them. The movies that would be called mumblecore. This is not, but it has that same kind of vibe to it where I'm like, all right, I can jive with this a little bit. Hopefully it gets more. It's in jury contention for dramatic competition at the Sundance Film Festival. Hopefully it gets a little bit of recognition there. It definitely deserves it. And considering I've seen one movie out of Sundance this year, if it was me on the jury, I would vote for it. But I've only seen one movie, so who knows? And I did not hear good things about Cat Person so far. But I think that's just about it for today. We'll be going back to theatrical movies shortly, following last weekend's problem and then this week's illness. What do we have this week? We have Living one day, and we have Women Talking the other. So we're going to wrap up the movies nominated for Academy Awards. Eventually I'll get around to RRR, because it is on Netflix, and I think All Quiet on the Western Front as well, because that is also on Netflix. Maybe I'll add those to the schedule for 30-minute reviews next month. And I think that's all the movies for Best Picture. I think I've seen them all then. And I think I'm going to, regardless of how I feel about the movies that I see, I'm going to keep them in my, what's it called? I'm going to keep my picks the same from what I did already. So we'll see how that stacks up. We're also going to do the shorts when they come theatrically. When they do the shorts competition. Or not the shorts competition, but the shorts, what's the word I'm looking for? The shorts thing. We're going to catch up on National Treasure at some point in the near future. We're going to maybe catch up on Velma. You know what? I think I'm just going to ditch Velma, and I think we're going to do Poker Face instead. The Natasha Leo and Ryan Johnson show on Peacock. That's probably a better use of my time and everyone else's time. And maybe the 1619 Project show on Hulu as well. So we'll throw that up as well. I'll rework the calendar and I'll post a new calendar up at some point in the near near future, because I'm trying to bang through projects quick, like really quick, like 12 days quick. See if we can. I'm like 7 pages into it already, and I'm like, let's see how quickly we can get this done, just for my own edification mostly. But yeah, I think that just about covers it. We'll be back tomorrow, definitely, with, I think tomorrow is Women Talking. Yeah, we'll be back with that. And until then, have a great rest of your week.